Hello, and welcome to The Painful Truth. In our docuseries, you will hear stories of PPCM survivors talking about a common disease. PPCM stands for Peripartum Cardiomyopathy, which is a preventable pregnancy-induced heart failure. PPCM, it's not rare, it's just rarely diagnosed. Early diagnosis saves lives. Hello, and thank you so much for your time today. Joining us, we have here Kayla that's going to talk about her peripartum cardiomyopathy PPCM experience and what the painful truth is, what women go through only due to lack of awareness. So, Kayla, thank you so much today for coming here and talking with me. A little bit about yourself. How old were you when you got pregnant?
I was 26 and I was 27 when my son was born. He was my first child and he was an unexpected blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got pregnant with him, I was definitely already feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. I always wanted children, but when I was younger, I was always a party animal and stuff. So I just, when I'm older. And then when I was 26 and I got pregnant with my son, my mom was making fun of me because I felt like I was behaving like I was 16 and pregnant. And my mom was like, hey, you're a grown up.
Yeah.
It's okay, you can do this. So it took me some time and I was in a panic that I was gonna be a terrible mother because I didn't know anything about babies. And as my pregnancy progressed, in the beginning, it was pretty normal.
Mm-hmm.
I had really horrible morning sickness, but other than that, it was pretty normal. But I was living in Long Beach at the time, and my mom lived up in Santa Clarita. So I moved back to Santa Clarita with my son's dad to be closer to my mom and everything, to get her help. And by the time, I would say, the first time I remember noticing any symptoms was probably about July 2014.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so you were 26.
I found out I was pregnant in early December. My son was born a week late, end of August.
December 2014, you said?
Well, I found out I was pregnant December 2013, and then my son was born end of August 2014.
Okay, so you were 26.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start showing symptoms of peripartum cardiomyopathy?
It was, I would say
what was
probably,
the first sign?
I would say probably June of 2014.
How
so
many months?
about 8 months pregnant,
8 months
I
pregnant?
think.
Okay.
8. It's hard to remember because my son was late. He was like, I think a week late. So I would say probably round about 8 months. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it does start later. For me, I think it started a little more in the earlier, my second trimester.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 4 months in is when I started. So what was your first symptom that you experienced that you felt like, oh wait, I'm pregnant, I've never been pregnant before, but this definitely doesn't feel right?
Well, honestly, I have to give all the credit to my mom. It was my mom that started noticing things. My mom had 4 children. She had been pregnant many times.
Yeah.
And like I said, this being my first pregnancy and also not a pregnancy that I planned, I didn't really know a whole lot about pregnancy, so I was just kind of winging it,
Right.
And I was going to the doctor and they were telling me everything was fine, so I just was like, okay, cool, good, rock on,
Yeah, totally, because they say you're fine, so you think I'm fine.
Right, and I was putting more focus onto the baby because I also was trying to figure out how to be a mom.
Right.
So I was trying to read baby books and books about child development and all kinds of stuff, trying to learn how to do the whole mom thing. So I really wasn't paying that close attention to my own health.
Right.
And I just remember it being around June because that was, up in Santa Clarita, it gets so hot, and that's when the heat really started to set in.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I noticed the swelling was getting really severe.
And where did you have swelling?
Well, I would say before June, my ankles were pretty swollen, but I didn't think much into it because you always hear that's kind of a stereotypical thing about pregnancy.
Sure,
You get swollen feet, swollen ankles. So I didn't think about it. But then when summer hit and it started to get hotter, the swelling started to go up my legs and I started to gain a lot of weight.
Okay.
And I remember the doctor started trying to talk to me about gaining too much weight. And
But it wasn't weight, it was actual fluid.
It was, which we later found out.
Right.
My doctor kept talking to me about, you need to, you can't, you're gaining too much weight. After when I did the whole gestational diabetes test and it came back all clear, he made me do it again because he was like, no, you're gaining so much weight.
I had the test too, and I came out normal as well. But I still had my times of death called.
Yeah, so it came out normal, and then he ordered me to do it again because he was like, you're gaining too much weight, your blood pressure is getting a little bit high, you need to do it again.
Right.
So I did it again, and it came back normal again the second time. And so then I was like, okay, cool. Well, everything's good. I don't know why I'm gaining so much weight, but whatever. Maybe that's just how I do pregnancy,
Yeah, I felt the same way, actually.
So then the swelling was getting worse. My hands were getting swollen, my arms, and my mom, and my mom kept telling me, I don't like it. I feel like you're really swollen. I feel like you're too swollen.
Yes.
My best friend since high school is a nurse, and he kept coming over to the house and like, she kept trying, Chris, does she look too swollen to you? And he'd be like, yeah, you look kind of swollen. It's a little weird,
Yeah.
And so I would go to the doctor and tell the doctor, hey, I feel like I'm too swollen. And, oh no, it's Santa Clarita. It's 115 degrees outside. You're in your third trimester of pregnancy. Of course you're swollen.
Could you lay flat?
No. I think about, like I said, June was probably the last time I could lay. That was when I started sleeping propped up on a pillow.
Yeah. When were you actually diagnosed?
I think 3 days after my son was born.
So it was after the pregnancy, when it's a pregnancy-induced complication, because you were fairly healthy your entire life, correct?
Right, and it was, definite. I'm gonna be honest, it was definite negligence, because afterwards, when I learned everything, I was like, okay, I was complaining about these things for months.
Correct.
And furthermore, a lot of things that happened during my delivery should not have happened. They added to it. Right. And I do, though, have to say, like, thank God, my case was caught super early. It was caught before I had like really severe damage, and luckily I didn't code or anything like that. But basically what happened was throughout the pregnancy, I was swelling more and more and more, just blowing up. I don't even remember how much weight I gained, because honestly, all of it is like a blur too, because with it being my first pregnancy and not even knowing that heart failure was a thing during pregnancy, I wasn't paying attention to things like how much weight is normal to gain versus what's not normal, and how, I wasn't, I just remember
that's what this is. This is a, people think it's a heart disease. Well, our heart is actually affected by the cause, and the cause is the fluid and the blood that's crushing the heart, causing the heart to either enlarge or weaken, depending. And so I had a C-section. I was never diagnosed until my times of death, 3 months after giving birth, with my husband calling 911 after CPR. But like, what was it that had them diagnose you after? Did you have a C-section? Did they give you any special test for them to have known that you were peripartum?
No, it was actually basically I went back to the hospital, but I went to the same hospital that I delivered in. So as much as I want to blame the hospital, I want to blame the hospital, but at the same time I don't.
Which hospital?
It was Providence Holy Cross in Mission Hills.
What was it?
Providence Holy Cross in Mission Hills.
Is it in California?
Yeah, it's not that far from here.
Okay.
It's right off the 5.
And how many doctors did you see during your pregnancy?
Well, I saw my main doctor, but I saw his nurse practitioner the majority of the time. And to be honest with you, I do have a lot of resentment towards her, because it was her. It was, I probably, from June when I started complaining about the symptoms, I think I saw my actual doctor twice, but it was her that I saw
so then it's
weekly.
Her.
And she Noticed that my blood pressure was high several times, and told me just to, it's probably because it's hot outside. It's probably because you had to walk up the flight of stairs because the elevator's broken, and just kept making excuses, even though it was high at every appointment. She just kept making excuses for it and told me, here, just lay down and drink some water, and then I'll check it again. Oh, it went down a little bit. So see, it's just because of the heat. It's just because of the stairs.
Sure. You can blame it on a lot of things. For me, I was eating a red pepper every day and basically eating very healthy, and they had me go to a nutritionist. So, obviously we know that the medical community and the birthing professional OBGYN community doesn't have very much training or education regarding the awareness of the preventions for maternal mortality or peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM. So when you were diagnosed 3 days after, what was the test that they finally gave you to give you that diagnosis?
Honestly, I don't even remember because I was in such shock and it was such a blur. My son, when I went to my final appointment, the day that I hit 40 weeks, my son was not budging. He had not dropped yet. I was not effaced at all. I was 0 centimeters dilated. So they told me, they said, look, we can induce you in a couple days or you can wait it out. But it looks like right now the baby is not showing any signs of coming on his own. So think about it, So I did, and then I told them, I guess just induce me. Like, I didn't know anything about anything.
Right, because it's your first baby, and you're 26 years old, and
exactly.
You're relying on your doctors.
So I talked to my mom about it. My mom said that she was induced with 2 of her 4 children, and it was fine, and it wasn't a big deal. So I was like, okay, I guess induce me. So I went to I don't remember the exact dates. Like I said, all of it just seems like such a blur.
Sure. You're lucky to be alive.
I remember I went to the doctor. I went to get induced on Tuesday, and my son did not come until Friday. I was on an IV the whole time.
Were you C-section?
No, I should have been a C-section. No, that was part of the whole the part that was negligence on the hospital's part is that whole entire time from Tuesday till Friday, I was on an IV, even though I was already so swollen and my blood pressure was already elevated, and I had already been complaining of shortness of breath and all of these things, and just kept getting told it's hot outside, you're pregnant, it's hot outside. And then and my son would not come out. I was in active labor for again, I don't even remember how long. I don't remember how long I was pushing for, but it was several hours of pushing.
So your heart could have really even still.
Oh, my heart was under so much stress. So, absolutely.
So now knowing what you know now, what you didn't know then, you're obviously you want to blame somebody, and rightly so. And I think it's because the proper diagnosis test is not mandatory in the blood panels. There's only one test that will determine a woman that is peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM, and that is the NT-proBNP test. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking about earlier that, the fact that this test is not standard in our blood panels, which is why women are continuing to, suffer and possibly die, all because of the negligence of having the awareness of this one blood test, correct?
Exactly. And especially when honestly, every pregnant woman should be given the BNP test regardless of their symptoms. But then furthermore, to be complaining about the symptoms for 2 months straight at every single appointment and still not be given the BNP test.
And you're probably getting bigger and
exactly.
bigger.
I was getting huge.
And symptoms.
I could barely bend my arms by the time I had my son because of all the fluid.
I remember that.
And then they had me on an IV for 4 days, just pumping me full of more fluid.
Which it induces a cardiac arrest because you're already full of fluid.
Exactly.
You need to remove the fluid and not give you an IV.
Exactly.
So that shows another negligence on that hospital.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. Lack of awareness.
And then, like I said, I probably should have had a C-section. Again, not knowing then what I know now is nobody should be in labor for 4 days, even if they're being induced. Nobody should be pushing for several hours.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
After an hour of pushing, we're done. This baby's not coming.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they had me in there. I had already been in labor for 4 days, so I really honestly,
days?
yes, I had been having that baby 4 days, and I don't even remember how many hours I was pushing.
Wow.
I remember I was like literally delirious, and I did not have any more strength left in me, and I was begging them to do a C-section. I remember sobbing and begging the nurse to please just cut him out. I cannot get him out. I cannot push anymore. I have been pushing, and she was like, "You're fine. You can do this. You're fine. You know, you're strong, blah, blah, blah." And I remember, the biggest thing that I do remember so clearly is I remember telling her, "I feel like I'm dying. I have no strength left in my body. You have to cut him out."
Because you were, in fact.
Exactly. And I remember saying that.
You feel like you're dying because you are dying.
And then she was like, he's already too far. He's close. He's too far. We can't do a C-section. You have to just get him out, you know? So I eventually did get him out. And then they
eventually
did, you know. I laugh about it every year on his birthday because on Facebook memories I get 4 days worth of any minute now 4 days worth of pictures of me in the hospital going, "Darby's almost here, guys," and then the next day, "Darby's almost here," and then the next day, and it always cracks me up because he's taken his time and he's been doing it ever since. So then after that, they sent me to maternity. I swelled even more. I gained weight after he was born.
Yeah.
I gained weight.
Because it peaks, PPCM peaks after, so everything that you're feeling during pregnancy, it exasperates.
Mm-hmm.
So it doubles. So I remember that. I was literally like Poppy on, you know, that song, Get Back Up Again in the end, when she eats that blueberry and she's like, you know, this big and she's a round ball and she's just like, ah. Like, that was me.
Yeah,
I
no,
was
same.
So huge.
That was insane. I was going to say, it's funny that you say that because I said when I got discharged, so I had gained weight, I was even more swollen, you know, I was like pitting, you could see that it was swelling, and I still got discharged.
Right.
Which is further negligence and even more of a joke in retrospect.
I had 104
you know?
temperature. They said I had a UTI and they sent me home. So yeah.
Yeah.
7 days later, I had my cardiac arrest.
So they sent me home. So my son was born Friday. They sent me home Saturday. Mm-hmm. I remember on the way home, I said I felt like Violet Beauregard because I was just like, well, like,
right.
And so I went home, and that first day home, everything was fine. And then the next day, it was Sunday, and the next day I was, I remember my son was, I was breastfeeding him and he was cluster feeding, and I hadn't slept like all night because he just would not sleep. He was colicky. It was a lot, you know? And so then I remember telling his dad, I don't even remember what time, I want to say it was like late morning, like maybe 11 o'clock in the morning or something. I remember.
You couldn't breathe?
No, I told him I was like, I don't feel well. Can you please just try to take the baby so I can try to go lay down? And he was like, "What's wrong? What do you mean you don't feel well?" And I was like, "I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but I just don't feel right. I think I'm just really sleep deprived." Like I was like, I just feel like kind of cold, and like I just feel kind of achy, and like I'm obviously I'm tired, but I just feel like off, and I think I just need to go take a nap. And so then I went to my room to lay down, and he said, I don't remember this, but I guess he called my mom and said that I looked like crap. Like he called my mom, and he was like, "I think something's wrong." Right. Like he was like, "I know she's really tired. I know she just had a baby, but she said she doesn't feel very well. She just went to go lay down, and she looks awful. Like something isn't right." So then I remember when I went to go lay down, that was the first time I remember really not being able to breathe. I was short of breath before, but that time I went to lay down and I had my pillows propped up already, and I probably laid about like that far back, and I felt like I had a stack of books on my chest. Yeah. Like I just could not breathe. Yeah. And so then I sat like fully up, and I just had a pillow like right behind my head, and I was like laying like that. Right. Yeah. And then my mom came, and she came storming into the room and was like, "Get up, I'm taking you to the hospital." And, you know, my mom is like a mama bear. She's like kind of, you know, when she wants you to do something, she wants you to do it no matter how old you are, you know? Right. So she was like, get up, we're going to the hospital. And I was like, oh my God, stop. I don't need to go to the hospital. Like, I don't feel well, but I've been awake for like 3 days. Like,
well, because you know what also is that young women, especially at 26 years old, never thinks about mortality.
Exactly.
Let alone thinking that you, as being healthy pretty much your entire life, to a pregnancy-induced complication, to now not being able to breathe, you're thinking, well, maybe this is normal. I thought the same thing. But in all reality,
and not only that, but no one tells you that there could be heart complications. Like, when everybody knows, like, basically for me, when you hear about birth complications,
right?
But they don't explain that. You know what I mean? Like, when you hear about birth complications, it's bleeding, it's anemia, it's hemorrhaging.
Should be common sense for the medical
community. So in my head, it never even occurred to me for a second that there might be something wrong with my heart.
Because you're 26 years old, you're a young girl, you've never been pregnant before. You wouldn't think about that maternal mortality could ever happen to you.
Right.
Because you're a strong
woman. And like
woman.
I said, in my mind, when women die, in my mind, I was thinking, like, when women die during childbirth, it's because they like hemorrhage, they bleed out, like something like that. So I'm thinking, I had my baby 2 days ago, I'm out of the woods, Right. So when my mom says, oh, we need to go to the hospital, I'm like, no, we don't. I'm fine. Like, I mean, I'm not fine. I'm tired. I don't feel very well. Something's wrong with me, but maybe I'm getting a cold or something. I don't know. And I was like, I just, it was a rough delivery. It was a rough pregnancy. Like, my body's probably just needs a minute. And you wanted to be home
and just in your bed
and I didn't think it was emergency room worthy.
Right.
I was like, if there is something wrong with me, I remember the next day was Labor Day. And I remember thinking, if there's something wrong with me, I'll go to the doctor on Tuesday. Like, I don't need to go to the emergency room. I don't need to go. So when you did
when you did go to the emergency room, who was it that actually diagnosed you?
I wish I could remember his name, but it was just the on-call doctor right then. And
okay, but is it because they gave you the NT-proBNP
No,
test?
He knew. He was on his game.
Because he had the
So we went back to Holy Cross, and I remember we debated it because the giving birth was such a horrible process, and we lived in Santa Clarita, and I remember telling my mom, just take me to Henry Mayo because I don't want to go back to Holy Cross. I don't want to deal with it. And my mom was like, no, when you're, whatever this is that's going on, you need to go to where you were treated.
Right.
You need to go to where you were treated because they have all your info and you were just there.
Medical records. But then also they tell you when I went back, they said, oh, go to multiple doctors and go to a different hospital because if they didn't have awareness during pregnancy, why would they have the awareness, now? But you would think, okay, a hospital is a hospital. This is where I would go. And that is why literally women fight the fight to be heard on their last breath, when they're literally taking their last breath and saying, I feel these symptoms, you can clearly see it on me, but it's still not connecting unless the doctor is educated and trained properly. So you got lucky.
I did.
I did
get very lucky because I went to the emergency room.
Right.
And even on the way there, I was still telling my mom, you're overdramatic, you're ridiculous.
When I went to the emergency room, they said I had a UTI. 7 days later, I had a cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
So they said I was fine. You're fine.
I remember I had slippers on because I couldn't fit my feet into my shoes.
I did the same thing.
And I was telling my mom.
I put my socks on my feet.
And my mom was. My mom and I joke about everything. Like, even in this moment, nothing is being taken seriously. So I'm telling her, you are absurd. You are so overdramatic. I was telling her in the car, just so we're clear, I'm only doing this right now to appease you. I do not think I need emergency medical care.
Of course
And
not.
she was like, you are wearing slippers.
Well, your mother saved your life.
I know she did. She absolutely did.
She saved your life. That's amazing.
And she was like, you're wearing slippers because you can't fit your shoes on your feet. And I was like, I was on an IV for 4 days. Like, give me a break. Give me a second to get all the fluid out, you know? So we walk into the emergency room. We get checked in. They took me back right away. This was at Providence Holy Cross in Mission Hills.
Who was your doctor? Or who was the woman that you...
So that was my next baby. That was my next baby. I'll get to that.
the one you didn't see your doctor.
Oh, the nurse practitioner?
Yeah.
I'd honestly, I know my doctor my OB was Dr. Brooks. His name was Dr. Brooks. I don't remember her. I know her first name was Julia, I think, but I cannot remember her last name because she was a nurse practitioner. So she was like, "Oh, just call me Julia," and like I don't remember her last name, but I'm sure I could look her up and find it.
And your glucose test was normal.
It was.
All
twice.
your tests were normal.
Twice. I took 2 glucose tests,
Yeah,
and they were
mine was
both
normal as
normal.
well. So fast forwarding, there was once you've learned about this and you found out that a simple blood test would have prevented all of that suffering, all of that fear, all of that scare, and that literally took some joy from this joyful experience. Who was that doctor that you went to that you wanted to mention?
So Dr. Hamid, I found her later. I found her 4 years later because basically, in the emergency room, like I said, that doctor.
I'm sorry. So you had your PPCM baby.
Mm-hmm.
How long until after your PPCM baby did you have another baby?
4 years.
Okay. And you felt like you would be confident and okay to have another baby?
Well, I did get approval from several doctors. Like basically, more or less, after I got diagnosed in the emergency room that day, and he didn't run any tests. He saw me, listened to my symptoms, and then left the room, came back, and said, he was really calm, and his bedside manner was really good, and he just really calmly said, "I'm gonna admit you to the ICU," and I was like, "I'm so sorry, what?"
Like so nonchalant.
Yes, and he was like, very calmly, he was like, "So you are experiencing heart failure that's related to pregnancy, so we're gonna put you in the cardiac ICU, and then we're gonna run some tests and go from there." And I was like, say again?
Yeah.
And he was like, it's called Peripartum Cardiomyopathy, and it's heart failure that is caused by pregnancy. And I was like, I didn't even know what to say. And I remember my mom was just sitting there silent too. And so then when they moved me up to ICU, my mom called my son's dad and called the family and stuff, let everybody know. And I don't even remember freaking out. I remember I seriously think I was in ICU for 4 days, and I seriously think it took the first 2 for me to really like sink in what was happening, because I still was just in, you know what I mean? Whoever thinks they're going to be in heart failure when they're 27, and who thinks that having a baby can cause heart failure?
Correct.
So,
and that's what this is. Like, that's why they call it peripartum cardiomyopathy is a young woman's disease, because it's induced during pregnancy, and so as a young woman, we just think that when you're young, you think that you're invincible.
Absolutely.
You think you can like smoke a pack of cigarettes and nothing's gonna happen.
And I absolutely was the queen of that. I was the queen of,
because when you're young, you're and that's normal. You experiment, you do things. You're youthful, so you wouldn't ever think of mortality could ever happen to you. And then the fact that this did happen to you, and you did experience the symptoms of heart failure, and you were saved. The next pregnancy that you had, did you have the same complications that you did with your first pregnancy?
No, I started to, but thank God for Dr. Hamid. I found her because,
what's her name?
Her name's Dr. Hamid, and she's at UCI in
Orange County, California?
In the city of Orange.
Okay. And what is she? What's her title?
Well, she is a high-risk OBGYN, and she's also a cardiologist.
Perfect. Okay, so she was a baby doctor and had heart awareness in cardiology.
Yeah, and she exclusively treats women with pre-existing heart conditions. So I actually just found her online because I got married, wanted to have another baby. I had been off meds for about At that point, I had been off meds for about 2 years.
Okay.
At my last echo with my cardiologist, my EF was 52%.
Oh, good. I was gonna say, what was?
Yeah, my EF was 52%. To be honest with you, to this day, I don't know what it was at diagnosis because I didn't, again, being uneducated on the matter, I did not realize how important that number was. So when they told me what my EF was, it just kind of went in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do know that it was the reason I was able to recover so quickly, and the reason why I am one of the lucky ones is because it was caught early enough that it was really just my right ventricle that had failed. My right ventricle was pretty much not working at all. My left ventricle was, but it was like on overdrive trying to do the work of the right ventricle.
Sure.
So that is the only reason why I was able to recover quickly and why I didn't sustain such long-term damage as some of these other women was, again, thank God for that emergency room doctor, because had I gotten blown off, and it would have gotten worse, and it would have been a way more severe scenario.
And I'm so glad that you're here today, like talking about this, because it is medically proven that also when you're caught early enough, you can fully recover and have children and be totally fine. It's when you're not caught in time, early diagnosis saves lives, which
Absolutely.
So that's why you were able to have another child, and that's why people don't understand that it's solely a pregnancy-induced heart failure. So if you're saved, then you can live a very, very long life and be fully recovered. So with your second pregnancy, did you have the same symptoms and complications, and you had the right doctor to monitor
Absolutely. It was like 1,000% Dr. Hamid. When I got the clear to have a baby, I looked online at various different, I was like trying, based on my experience, I was like, I know I need to have the right doctor. And I just so happened to, I think I searched like OBGYNs with cardiology experience or something. I don't know. I was looking for like best OBGYN for heart failure or something. And I found her, and she was close to me.
So what did she do differently with this pregnancy that the other doctor didn't do?
So she, I mean, for one, she monitored me really closely. I think I had like 4 echocardiograms throughout I think I had one in the beginning.
And how many NT-proBNP tests?
Every appointment.
Every appointment.
Every appointment, I got a BNP test. Every single appointment from 12 weeks on.
Absolutely.
And then when I was like 28 weeks, I think my BNP got elevated. Okay. I started to swell a little bit at 28 weeks.
What's the number?
It's supposed to be below 100. I think mine hit about 200.
Okay.
So it was only a slight elevation, you know. But again, Dr. Hamid being amazing, my BNP was, she said it's slightly elevated, not enough to cause alarm. And she did an echocardiogram that day just in case, and my heart was fine and my EF was still at like 52%.
Sure.
So she took me out of work, she put me on disability, and she gave me Lasix and put me on the low sodium diet. So 1,200 milligrams of sodium a day, Lasix every day for the remainder of the pregnancy.
Okay.
And then at my next appointment, my BNP was back down to like 75 or something. It was below 100 at my very next appointment.
Did they give you like a Corey beta blocker?
Not on the second one. She basically said because my BNP was only slightly elevated, she said she wanted to start with low sodium and Lasix and then go from there. And so then
no
at my
magnesium.
next,
Okay.
So then at my next appointment, it was my BNP went back down. So she just kept with the Lasix and the low sodium and had me keep walking to keep the fluid moving and everything.
Right.
And then she induced me at 39 weeks. She
Amazing.
had told me in the beginning that tentatively 37. It just kind of depends on how things were going.
That's very smart.
But things were going well, so she induced me at 39. She said she wanted to induce instead of a C-section because of the fluid and the laying down. So she induced me with no IV.
Amazing. And with C-sections comes, with fluid and C-sections come infections, so she wanted to avoid that.
Yes, she did say that she prefers, with heart failure, she prefers to do an induction over a C-section.
So smart. See, I had a triple whammy with my doctor having absolutely no awareness at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Beverly Hills. I was at 41 weeks pregnant, and I called her and I said, I can't close my hands. And she says, I'm in Hawaii. So my doctor didn't even do that. She says, you're fine. You're fine. I was 41
You're just
weeks
pregnant. You're just pregnant.
My mom was like, get that baby out. And I kept thinking, and for me, I was scared to get the baby out because I felt like once that baby was going to be born, I was going to die, which exactly happened because I felt it. And I was like, I don't want him to leave my body. I can remember I kept telling, John, I kept saying, I don't want him to, I don't want him out. Like, I'm afraid to have him out. It was like, I had like this, I loved him inside of me, even though I was dying, but that I was afraid because I knew that was going to be it.
Right, like when I was having my son and I told the nurse I feel like I'm dying.
Right,
like,
well, because you are.
Yes.
If you feel like it, then you are.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, Dr. Hamid was amazing. And after I had my daughter in 2018, also in August, which again, with the you're pregnant, it's summer, I had another August baby and did not have the same. Yay.
August 18th.
Oh, my daughter's August 5th and my son's August 29th.
Okay.
So right in between.
Okay.
But yeah, like Dr. Hamid was literally life-saving because again, I was technically starting to relapse with the BNP becoming elevated, and it was at 28 weeks. So probably right around the time when my symptoms started with my son too. And like I said, the Lasix helped. And the amazing part is after I gave birth and then when I went for my 6-week postpartum appointment, she did another echocardiogram and she continued to treat me for the 6 months after, just to make sure, and did several echocardiograms and continued to check my BNP and everything for the 6 months postpartum. But at my 6-week appointment, she did an echocardiogram and my EF was 62%.
Wow.
So my EF went up. Yes. So not only did I get to have another pregnancy, but I also got to improve my heart function. And my heart has been great ever since. My doctor monitors it and everything. So that really is a testament to what awareness does for people. You know what I mean? Because of just the one time of my BNP elevated means that if I had been with a doctor like my first doctor, I probably would have relapsed and gone back into heart failure again. Sure. But because I was in the right hands of the right doctor that was taking all the preventative measures, simple preventative measures, might I add, the echocardiograms was because of my history, but the BNP test is really, my echoes were good even with my elevated BNP. My echoes were all good even with the elevated BNP. So it was the BNP test that really was the game changer.
Exactly. And the BNP test, heart failure, not cold. The BNP test is the only test that should be throughout a pregnancy, before, middle, at the end, and then after giving birth, because everything peaks after giving birth. So there needs to be some sort of a study that the BNP test is to prove, which they have, I believe, at the IPAC Research Lab.
Dr. Hamid, my doctor from my post-PPCM pregnancy, was, as of 2019, she was conducting a study to push for the BNP test to be in every pregnancy. I haven't checked the status of it because I'm sure COVID kind of disrupted things, but she, I know as of February of 2020, she had been monitoring 300 women, I think, and had detected heart failure in 4 of them using a BNP test. And they were all women that at that point had no symptoms and had no history of any kind of a heart issue.
Was able to
so they were caught at random. They were just random pregnant women with no indicators that she caught using the BNP test.
Which is why this test needs to be standard and mandatory in the blood panels. And like you said, we have so many tests where as a pregnant woman, we are poked, we are given screenings, labs, testing.
So many blood tests.
So many. So why do you...
They always use the excuse that it's because heart failure in pregnancy is rare. But at the end of the day, it still kills people. No matter how rare it is, you're already doing how many blood tests during a pregnancy? Right. So why... Even if it, you know what I mean?
But they
If it just
say
saves
it's
one
rare,
person.
But it's actually common. It's 1 out of 4 women. There's over 2,000 cases a year that we know of.
Right.
And so, it's not rare. It's actually common, just rare to have
I feel
any
like it's
awareness.
rarely diagnosed
It's
is
rarely
the issue.
diagnosed,
Yes,
right.
it's not rare.
Right,
It's
it's
rarely
rarely
diagnosed. So it's not that. It's the issue of getting the doctors to actually see it and diagnose it.
And I feel like when a doctor says, oh, it's rare, like my doctor said to me after when I went back to her and I said, you killed me, but I lived. I had my times of death. She said, you just got the bad luck of the draw. But I didn't have enough awareness to say, yeah, I got the bad luck of the draw of having an entire medical team that has no awareness of the NT-proBNP test as well as peripartum cardiomyopathy. But she put me in my place when I was vulnerable. And I didn't have I didn't know what to say at that point. Oh, I got, I'm young. I got the bad luck of the draw. Okay. No, that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for any doctor to say that this disease is rare. It's unacceptable that any doctor has any excuse whatsoever other than taking responsibility on not having the proper training and education about the preventions for this blood test that can prevent suffering and death like it has for you twice.
Absolutely. Exactly. So that's my biggest takeaway from the whole thing is the BNP test. I'm so passionate about pushing for that BNP test because that's and like I say, I can confidently say I felt that way before I had my daughter, but now afterwards, now I can confidently say no, that BNP test is it. That's the end all be all because that's exactly what prevented me from having this experience again. And I was recovered, and they say that if your EF is over 50% and you've been off meds for a year, you're clear to have another baby and your risk of relapse is low. And I was off meds for 2 years, and my EF was 52%. So my risk of relapse was low, but it still started to happen.
It still happened.
Yes.
Because, chances are if it happens once, it's going to happen again, no matter what the statistics are.
Exactly.
It's our body. And the thing is that I always say, consult with your intuition first. When you felt like you were dying and the doctors are like, oh no, you're fine, all the tests are fine, but you were feeling all these things, you were complaining for 2 months and nobody was really listening to your symptoms. When I say no one's listening, they're hearing, but they're not taking action on giving, okay, well, this test came out normal, this test came out normal. Why don't we try something? Let's dig a little deeper. Let's see why she's feeling this. That's when medical practice should really come into play, into why I believe medical professionals go into medicine to begin with, because they want to, learn more, and be educated on how, how they can get better. Now, the fact that women be giving birth since the beginning of time, cardiologists have seen women died, gynecologists have seen women died, but nobody once have ever stepped up until right now. And that's because women are finally starting to come out, talk about it, get together, talk about it. And it's not that we didn't talk about it before with our doctors. It's just that our doctors aren't really talking about it with each other. And so here...
And they're not being held accountable for it either.
They're not being held accountable. They're not taking any responsibility. It is complete negligence since the beginning of time until now, 2021. And, I really appreciate, you coming here and spending your time. Time is obviously, precious and priceless. Like, we can spend it with anybody, and you came here, you have 2 babies that are missing their mommies, and you're talking about your experience and how, you survived twice this preventable disease, which you've lived to say this. And that's why I have you here today, because there are women that are as young as 20 years old, 18 years old, that literally go through the exact same thing that you're going through. As we speak right now, we're sitting here on this couch, there are women all over the globe pregnant, not knowing what's happening, and doctors sending women home, and they go home with more questions, you know, about why they feel this than when they first entered their appointment. They
or
walk
even
out.
like questioning their sanity, going home feeling
That's what I'm
like I
saying.
feel like there's something wrong with me, but the doctor says there's not. So maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I'm just being over dramatic. Maybe I'm, you know.
Absolutely. And that's how I felt. You know, I went, my insurance clocked me almost over 40 times. And in a healthy visit for a woman that's pregnant for 9 months is you go once a month, that's 9 times. I kept going and going and going and going and going and going. I have ultrasounds of my baby because they kept checking the baby. They kept seeing the baby. He was perfect. You know, it was me, which is we are a different vessel. You are a different vessel than your baby. So there's a different, when they're testing the baby. They're not testing you, which is why the NT-proBNP test it tests mommy, not baby. It tests mommy.
Exactly.
And we're different.
Exactly.
You know, yes, they're inside of us, but we're still different. We're still different beings.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, with this, I am, like, again, I'm very grateful for your time today, coming here.
No, I'm grateful for
us.
you initiating all of this. Like, I've spent the last 7 years, like, begging anyone to listen, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just fallen on deaf ears. It so incredibly frustrating.
And that's why I started this platform, because I see women like you know, screaming from the rooftops, like, listen to me, listen to what I've been through. And because it's not joyful, people shy away from things that are not joyful. But the reality is that women are in fact dying, and it is in fact preventable, and it is medically proven that no woman should ever suffer and die from peripartum cardiomyopathy. Thank you again so much, and many blessings to you and your family.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for still being here with us in this world and spreading the awareness. And on behalf of PPCM Fund, we are just beyond grateful that, you know, we are able to provide this platform for you.
No, thank you so much.